Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of my weekly reading update and life update chat, the Grimm Weekly, I think is what I'm calling it. And I think this is episode 4, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm just diving in today. So let's see. It's either an all or nothing a little bit here. Like this almost feels like a too much week, and I'm just diving in. I haven't really thought about exactly how to structure my chat today. I guess I'll start out with the Weight Watchers is going well, and I think the main reason is I'm enjoying what I'm eating, and I'm sort of, probably because it's summer, you do tend to sort of eat less or not have as many cravings for comforty foods, or that at least that's what's going on with me. And I really think that I was overeating, and I kind of don't need that much food, and so it's going well. And I even, me, the non-domestic person who loves domesticity, but never, I baked something. I baked, even though it's hot and we don't like to put the oven on, I did bake some low-cal, low-point muffins. It was just very easy otherwise. And it was just eggs and Kodiak flapjack flour and bananas, smooshed bananas, and I didn't have any fruit, and I did have vanilla extract, but because I didn't know where it was, I didn't put it in. Next time I'm going to try and make another batch with some vanilla extract and probably some blueberries, something to make it a little bit less taste like it's just bananas. I mean, they weren't good. They were a little bit, the texture was a little bit strange, but they were pretty good for my first effort. I mean, they were edible, and they've apparently, according to my source, TikTok, only 1 point, which I'm not sure about. I think if you smoosh the bananas, they may be more, but it's fine. So that's going well. And then everything else. So let me get into my thinking and my reading, because it's all kind of connected this week. And I have been rabbit holing. So I spend a lot of time, too much time at my computer, and I fall down rabbit holes. It's sort of not exactly research, but it does get into sort of esoteric stuff, as you will see. My mind just kind of gravitates to some of these topics and kind of glums onto certain aspects of them to a certain point. It's pretty kind of flitting about and not really honing in. But the problem is, well, the reason why I'm sort of letting myself do this is I finished the 2 books. I finished the David Mitchell, The 1,000 Autumns of Jacob de Zoet, which, you know, I'm not going to say that much more about it. It's sort of receding from memory as we speak. The ending was fine. It was resolved, but I still was really underwhelmed by the whole thing, mainly because of the style that I just was not in love with, and the characters didn't really come into their own that much for me. I just didn't like it that much, to be honest. I just didn't like it that much. I mean, it was fine, as I said last time. And then I also finished Stifter, the Stifter book, my lovely Stifter book, which, you know, I've said some things about it, and I'm still gonna, it's still kind of on the, it's still kind of a research thing that's going on that I might talk more about. One thing I was writing down about, so one thing that we're dealing with here with one of my sort of special interests, for lack of a better term, as sort of utopias, envisioning utopia, envisioning a society that is perfect. And what would that look like? And so I've written down here, because I have a list of sort of rabbit holes. Stifter, so I have 2 examples of utopian stuff that I gravitate towards when I need that mentally. And so Stifter is a soothing Austrian utopia, people interacting with each other in a completely unantagonistic way, which may be the wrong word. But so, and it's interesting that when people interact with each other in a way that is not full of tension, there is a sense of it becoming kind of complacent and perhaps boring even. I wrote down meandering, and it definitely has a kind of meandering style. It's on almost these repetitions of, and then he visited this person, and then he visited this person, and they visit each other, and they talk, and they make plans about their environment that they're living in. There's a lot about building bridges and stuff. So, but they always come together, and they never disagree really on it. And it's interesting because I was thinking about the plot so what do you do in this sort of unanarchistic, quiet, beautiful realm of people just getting along nicely and having nice lives? and sort of improving their environment for the better. What happens when something bad happens? Because actually quite a bit of bad stuff happens in this book. People have accidents. And so what happens with that is, I wrote here, when something bad happens, will something bad happen? See, that's what, when it's meandering, you wonder if something will happen. There's a sort of foreboding almost. And I wrote down, yes, but it will be incorporated into the pleasantness and therefore made less awful. Really bad things happen throughout the book to the main character, the doctor. He loses people. And then there's another story. There's a frame within the frame. I think it's the other person, the colonel, or whatever Obrist is in English. He loses someone and it's an accident. And that actually involves a pretty harrowing moment with the little doggy. But it's as if it all just kind of becomes a part of life. And to me, connected to one of the other books I'm reading, it's all connected, per usual. It's kind of annoying, but that's just how it is. That is the utopian aspect of, is it how to sort of incorporate the awful things that happen and the ultimate awful things that we will all pass on into a way that makes you still want to live and be happy. Like, how do you do that? How does one do that? So in a kind of existential way. And I do love this, what he's trying to do here. And it's also, the novel didn't get finished, and you kind of sense there's one major scene that's missing, and it's when the doctor reconnects with the friend that ran away. That's not in there because it was broken off and he didn't get to finish it, which is kind of sad. But you don't feel that upset with, because you kind of have a sense, I'm sure it probably would have all been resolved in this nice way, even though it isn't. And so that's that. Goodbye, Stifter and Mitchell, and bring on the new stuff. And I'll tell you what I'm going through. I think I'm going to switch to, well, maybe I'll go through my list of things here. So, and so basically this is kind of, I don't know how interesting this will be, but so what I've done is I go back to my history on my computer, because I am looking things up all the time. And so this is how I'm kind of reconnecting with what my mind was engaged with last week. And one thing I really want to do, because I figured out I have a new subscription online that I haven't been looking at. So you really have to I have to pay attention to what I'm subscribed to, so I can make a point of reading a couple of articles from everything I'm subscribed to. I sort of feel like, as someone who's interested in literature, I should be subscribed to some of these places to keep them going, to sort of like give them my support. And, I kind of switch them around, which ones, sometimes it's Paris Review, sometimes it's LitHub, which ones do I like better? Anyway. And so, okay, the first one is a bit of a sort of, I'm obsessed with strange things, and I'm always wondering, so I tried to find out more reasons. Okay, this is silly. I'm embarrassed to even ask this. So one thing I was looking into is, why do people gauge their ears? Like, why do people stretch them? What's the stretching about? And I understand somewhat some of the piercings, even though I'm not a big fan of them. And I especially don't really like what a lot of people have, is the nose one. I don't know why, I just don't like that one. Piercings, I kind of get. Tattoos, I kind of like, think they're beautiful. I don't think I'd want one, but I think they're beautiful. They can be rather beautiful, and there's a wide range, of course, personal expression. But the gauging of the ears seems kind of, why do that? But I guess it's just something that I'm fixated on. And then I did look into some recipes for Weight Watchers. And then what happened was, I need to read this on Harper's. I've talked about how I subscribed to Harper's because they had stuff about Volman, which I haven't looked into. It's reminding me I need to. But there's an article on there by a journalist or a writer called Lewis Hyde, and he wrote a book connected to fairy tales. It's called about the trickster archetype in fairy tales. But the article sounds really up my alley because it's called The Geological Sublime, Butterflies, Deep Time, and Climate Change. So I have a special interest in butterflies. I just think they're beautiful. And I'm also interested, that topic to me, the geological sublime, just sounds wonderful. And it's bookmarked, but I haven't read it yet. And so moving on from butterflies, I was doing a little bit of research into butterflies. And then I'm going to sort of insert here my incoming postcards from postcrossing, because it connects to another sort of, you'll see the connection. And so the first three I got were beautiful. I got them all in one day. I got this cute little fox from Holland, Leiden. I love the fox. I got this beautiful sort of folkloristic young woman from a cool place that I don't have. I only have, it's only my second card from Ireland, so that's cool. And then this is from Oregon, and this is what set me off down the path of, so if you see it, it's called the Fruits of the Hedge, and it's a bunch of mice in their sort of Sunday best. So it's not focusing. Focus. Will it focus? And I was obsessed with how beautiful and intricate the painting was. And it says here on the back, The Fruits of the Hedge and it's Brambly Hedge. So I looked into what Brambly Hedge is, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole, I just ran and had to get the book. It's The Complete Brambly Hedge by, I think she's British, Jill Barklam. And some of you may be familiar with this. And the illustrations are really top notch, and it's very Beatrix Potter vibe, and I just love it so much. And so what I've done with the complete book is, so she has what started the series is she has stories for each of the seasons. So she has the summer story, and then she's going to have the autumn, and they're just really beautiful for children, but I just think they're just beautiful for a stressed out person to look at. And apparently she really conceived it as a utopian imaginary world where these sort of anthropomorphic mice live their extremely unantagonistic lives. So another sort of comfort read for me, and I'm so happy I got this. I think it has like my favorite berries. I'm eating a lot of berries now. I love blackberries, and I just love them more than strawberries. I like blackberries and I like raspberries the most, I think. And so, yes, I'm so happy about this. It's just, I mean, I love it. I love it. And yes, and so that was Brambly Hedge that came with those 3 postcards on that. And that came earlier in the week. And so moving on into what else I was sort of rabbit holing about, it moved on into a book that was someone introduced on the Discord that I sometimes look into. And it was a book called Gaian Systems. So the Gaia hypothesis, some of you may be familiar with it, the somewhat woo-woo notion that the Earth is a self-regulating, quasi-aware system. Apparently there's a weak and a strong hypothesis, but they call it Gaia, I think, that just to sort of, because it's this referencing it as a system. So I need to do more research on just the origins of that hypothesis, someone called Lovelace. But the book itself is by this professor who does work on, so the subtitle of the book was something to do with anyway, the basic, sorry, I'm being vague. I don't even have a cover of the book ready to show you. So it's trying to connect another field that I'm interested in, cybernetics. So cybernetics, here's a sort of definition about understanding how systems regulate themselves and achieve goals and adapt to their environment through information flow and feedback. So that's cybernetics. And so there's apparently a whole bunch of people trying to connect the sort of Gaia system stuff to cybernetics and bring the two together, and also connect it to neuroscience, I guess, neuroscience. And then there's another sort of inroad here, and I won't talk a lot about it this time, but maybe next time. So phenomenology, the sort of philosophical take on things that I don't have a good definition of right now. But there's also something called neurophenomenology. So connecting kind of sciencey stuff with philosophy, and even sort of non-Western, or kind of coming at this notion of how things work in a new way, a completely new way. Because I think there is aspects of the Gaia and stuff that sort of brings in indigenous ideas of, the world and everything, perhaps. Maybe it's a branch of it, I don't know. And what I've done is, Bruce Clark has a lot of really kind of dense lectures online. Like and he's a professor and he's very professorial, so that might throw some people off, but it never throws me off. I'm like, bring on the big words. I have no problem. I like the big words, because you know what? You can look up what they mean. And so that was one thing, and it sort of led, I don't quite know how I got there, but then the next big rabbit hole that I'm still in, I got from, I don't know what the jumping over thing was. Like, how did I get from one to the other? taxonomy of the different of the world and the things, the species in it, so to speak. So taxonomy in terms of, you know, biology, so, or phylogeny. So let me see if I can remember. Domain, kingdom, phylum. I'm doing the dinky kids. Dinky kids prefer class, order, family, genus, species. Those are that's Linnean. That's the basically Linnean taxonomy. And what's interesting to me about it is how that is still kind of used, but of course it's being infused by what people know in terms of evolution and phylogeny, so the history of evolution, and so that those things still exist and are talked about and used, but they're constantly being reevaluated. I was just reading about, you know, and so I'm going in there trying to be like, so, you know, what's the relationship between a cat and a tiger? And just as an example of who I'm married to, I'm the one with a PhD, and I was like, what are they? They're not. So the basic definition of a species is that they can interbreed. So that's the lowest one. I mean, there's subspecies, but that's the one at the bottom. So cats and tigers, I'm like, what are they? And Bill just happened to know that they are, I think they're in the same family. Not order, family. The one further up, I guess. And he just knew that. I keep asking him, how do you know this? And he can't tell me how he knows so much things. So many of these things that I bring up with him, the domain stuff, he already knows. And maybe part of why I'm doing it is to stump him, which is kind of fun. Why not? You know, keeps things exciting. But also just because I want to know. And I'm surprised at how little I know. I took biology, but it was really sort of systems. We did a lot of stuff about the rhesus factor, and we did genetics, quite a bit of genetics with Mendel. And it was the only science I did fairly well in Germany. You know, I'm writing these essays in German about genetics. It was really genetics is what we focused on. Anyway, so, you know, bring on cladistics, phylogenetic trees. And what's absolutely amazing and wonderful about 2025 is how much good stuff is on the internet. It's fun, entertaining. There's the crash course. There's the amoeba sisters who do really cute comics about biological stuff. And then there's sort of slightly more, you know, there's professors who have channels with millions of subscribers who just give you such good information about, I was just listening to one about the phyla and how complicated it is to establish how many phyla there are. And the minute you get away from sort of actual animals to other things that are still in the same whatever, phyla or whatever's above phyla, it's really hard. And it's still in flux because people just don't know. There's just so much we still don't know. That's what's, it's just, and what happens with this stuff for me, and maybe that's how people get into microbiology, is that you realize how complex and wonderful and fascinating the world of microbiology is. Hank Green has an amazing course on microbiology stuff, and let me know what if you've played around with stuff that's out there. If you have kids, I mean, that's a great plus for nerdy kids, or even just kids who are, everyone should be curious about this stuff because it's what life is about. Especially the biology stuff. Maybe not so much the neuro Gaia stuff. That's just me, but I don't know how one cannot be interested in that. So let's see, what else? So in terms of my reading, it's a little bit frustrating because I did start Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities, and even though it's apparently considered a lesser Dickens, I kept thinking about how much better it is than someone like Mitchell. It's just exciting. It's an adventure story in the beginning. They're all in this thing. And the beginning is a nice sort of overview of the times. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Famous beginning of Tale of Two Cities. But it is the kind of book where I really want to have a copy in front of me. And apparently my copy is not coming until the end of July. So I actually might switch out because I want to have it with me so I can look things up. Because at the beginning, it's sort of this, it's 1775, and he's kind of giving an overview of what's happening. Of course, it's going to hone in on the revolution, apparently. I mean, I know sort of certain things of the plot. So that was going to be my audio. And then in terms of books, I'm still sort of deciding. But in the meantime, I don't know if any of you remember this, but I have this amazing sort of lifelong endeavor, or maybe not, So I'm trying to read this extremely long novel called Miss MacIntosh, My Darling by Marguerite Young, who lived in the 30s and 40s. I don't know when she was born. She died in the 80s. She was quite old when she died in New York. And it's considered one of the longest novels ever written. And I have a fangirl relationship to Margaret. She's just amazing. She was this, staunchly sort of, I'm going to write. Writing is going to be my life. I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to have a family. I'm going to walk around Greenwich Village and smoke and just look the way I look in my funny clothes that I wear, sort of unmade up. Her face is a beautiful kind of landscape of a face. And her apartment is just so, and sort of things like she collected dolls. Like there's pictures of this, I think he's a Polish photographer who went and found all these great pictures of her and her dolls. I'll put one here. Amazing lady and an amazing writer of a sort that really comes along not very often, I don't think. And so, another sort of little story or anecdote about Miss MacIntosh is that it comes up in Anne Tyler's novel Accidental Tours, which kind of makes me want to read it, because it's sort of a divination type book for the main guy in there. And it does really work as a book that you can really just open. Even there is plot, and it's sort of weird, but it's really just based on the cast of characters that she's writing about. I mean, there's the plot of this woman going to try and find her nanny, who is Miss MacIntosh. And, there's sort of, I think it's almost Kafkaesque in the sense that Miss MacIntosh turns out to be much more, perhaps even sinister than she initially was thought to be. I mean, based on the title, everyone's sort of sinister, but they're not so sinister. And it does have, anyway, so what I wanted to do right now was give you a sense of this. You can open it anywhere and just fall into the beautiful, strange, poetic, hypnotic prose that she writes. She was just an amazing writer. You have to say that. I mean, compared to, what else I've been talking about. So let's just see what happens. May not be a good one, but we'll see. See what I come up with. Staring with enlarged myopic eyes, and oh, what difficulties of vision were ever his. Mr. Spitzer had read these old papers shaking in his shaking hands, so that he felt like the wind-blown poplar lighted by fish lights, had read these old papyrus scrolls like faded lilies crumbling at a touch, perhaps had read each paper twice, and if at times with the natural hesitation, if at times the print was blurred as if he read by moonlight, by one moonbeam streaming through a dark cloud, had done so with no more difficulty than he might read his own signature years after he had signed his clef, or the snare writing in the moon-empearled sands, moving like clouds marked by waves when the moon had faded, signs of stars drifting through plumed clouds, messages left by waves of blackbirds flying on a windy day of dissonance, like his musical notes when the wind blew around his dark cape, his cape like a ringing like a bell, leaf imprints on stone, snowflakes falling from a dark cloud and melting as they touched stone. That's a sentence. That's one sentence. You can see why it's taking me forever to read this. I love all the imagery. I love how she interweaves the landscape in her sort of meanderings of a consciousness. It defies, and I think when you read the people who've actually gone and read the whole thing, I haven't looked at Leaf by Leaf's video. He's very positive about it. They are sort of like, how dare you write this long book? It's amazing. I love it. I hate it. I love it. I hate it. Most people probably just don't read it. But one person whose essays are like Phil Chrisman, he read it and you could just tell he's sort of annoyed with it, because people say that at some points it doesn't work as well. And so, sorry, it's a long one today. I don't think you should read it that way. I think even Phil Chrisman says at the end, just dip into it here and there. And I'm sort of reading it slowly in order. And I'm enjoying it. So that's what I'm doing right now. Instead of studying a new book, I'm reading a little bit of Miss MacIntosh. It's still about Mr. Spitzer, who's one of the people who visits the lady who's the opium lady who's in bed all the time. That's her mother, in this story. And Mr. Spitzer, one of his things is that he gets confused with people thinking he's his brother, who's apparently dead, but we're not sure if he's really dead. Like, yeah, it's not for everyone. I understand that, but I have this special, lovely relationship to her and her book, and I just think it's almost like this is famous picture of her. I'm looking around for my shoe down here, of her with her head on the manuscript, and the manuscript's this high. It's like and he has her head on it, and you really get the sense of this is her offspring. This is her creature that she created. And even though not that many people, people read it, it's really good, even though it's crazy. So that's what I've been reading a little bit, not that much, a couple pages. Look at that sentence that I just read. It was crazy. And then yesterday it was funny. To end here with the postcards again. I got 3 postcards, and I'd just been talking to Bill about tigers and cats, and like what do they buy? And I got this in the mail. That's a lion, so not the same, but still. And then I got this tiger, and then I got this one, a lion and a tiger, all on the same day. I just think that's hilarious. It's very sort of quasi-utopian. And see, this is the utopia aspect with Miss MacIntosh there too, a little bit, this meandering inside world. Let's see, I think that's it. That's all I have, and it is getting kind of warm. I need to check the AC and put it on. It's still really hot here. And yeah, I think I'll stop. It's very long. I'll try and put sort of pointers in it, but it's sort of hard. Like it was all just coming together in this crazy way. But I hope I gave you an overview of where my mind's been at. Oh, actually, I am reading something else here at the end. I did actually 2 other books. I'm sorry. I'm reading Homemaker, getting back into this one, where the father's going to be the mother and the mother's going to be the father. But I'm also kind of doing work on myself, so self-therapy type stuff. So the mindful path to self-compassion, freeing yourself from destructive thoughts and emotions. And it's sort of, you have to be careful when you're reading books by a therapist person, because there's this resistance to when he just says, just do this, this, and this, and you'll be better. And you're like, not so easy. But on the other hand, I think his basic premise is, in order to feel better, to get better, you have to kind of do some pre-work. You have to sort of internally, mentally, you have to get okay with yourself in a sort of mental way before you could work on the sort of actually sort of exercising more, whatever. I'm not explaining it well. I'll come back to this next week, because I feel like I'm babbling and it's too long. But yeah, I did want to mention those 2 books that I am also reading. So there's quite a bit going on, as you can tell. I will stop there. Sorry for the length. And tell me what you're up to. And I'll try and comment. I'm putting books that people mention on my TBR. So there is that going on too. I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Next week. Bye.